if those employers can see the value in investing in these young, this young workforce, once again, creating habits in the workforce that they want versus breaking those habits, that breeds its success right there.
Welcome to the Construction Disruption Podcast, where we uncover the future of building and remodeling. I'm Seth Heckerman, and this is my co-host, Todd Miller. Today's guest is Tony Trapp from right here in Piqua, Ohio, where we at Isaiah Industries are also located. Tony is a 25-year veteran of career and technical education. He has spent his career investing in the students of Upper Valley Career Center, and for the last 10 years has led its work-based learning and apprenticeship program, which has grown to serve over 200 students a year, allowing them to spend their senior year earning money and learning a craft that will serve them their entire life. The skilled labor shortage is frequently mentioned on the Construction Disruption Podcast as a huge challenge facing our industry and really all industries in the economy at this point. So I'm very excited to have Tony on today to hear his insights and forecasts on what this shortage looks like moving forward and what he is doing and other career and technical education centers are doing to address that challenge. So thank you, Tony, so much for joining us this morning. Looking forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you, Seth and Todd, for that generous introduction. Not sure that person on paper is the same guy you're getting ready to talk to right now, but he kind of sounds pretty cool. So we'll see if he can pull it off. Hey, before we get too deep in the conversation, I have something to ask you too.
Okay.
I've heard in some past episodes the sharing of dad jokes. So are you up to for a couple of mine?
Absolutely, would love to hear him.
All right. Well, I have one, maybe two, we'll see. So there's a well-dressed man riding a bicycle and a not so well-dressed man riding a tricycle. What's the difference between the two?
A wheel?
An extra wheel. I don't know.
A tire.
A tire. There you go.
A tire. This one's always my go-to, especially this time of season in Ohio, the cold and flu season. But what did the one casket say to the other casket?
I don't know.
Is that you coughing?
There we go.
Those are both. You were so close on the tire and wheel.
That's usually the answer. That was my answer when I was approached. I didn't invent that one.
Well, they're both good. I'm going to have them holstered from now on. So thank you for sharing. Fun way to kick off. So to begin, and before we dive into the kind of the details of what you do day to day at Upper Valley, listeners, you'll hear us refer to it as UVCC, probably Upper Valley Career Center, UVCC for short. But before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about you and your career up to this point and how'd you ended up where you are today.
Well, actually, I started career technical education my sophomore year of high school as I toured our local career center. And you'll hear me referring to career tech or vocational, just probably depends on the era that you have grown up in. But they're both the same. But I toured our local career center here in Piqua and decided to enroll in our industrial electronics program. I'm a product of vocational career technical education and very proud of it. I'm a father of a product of that as well. My son attended our career tech school. So as you know, at this time, vocational education, or at that time, vocational education had a stigma about itself. If you attended a local vocational career technical school, you were a troublemaker at your high school. That's one of them. They wanted you to get out of the building, maybe become somebody else's problem. I'm here to tell you on this national podcast, I was not that student. Although I was a little ornery and still am. I'm just an adult version of myself.
I can well imagine that, Tony.
Actually, I liked working with my hands and building things in our high school shop class, my freshman and sophomore year, which I feel that kind of led me into that. And I looked forward to and loved looking forward to attending those classes. I can still remember in wood shop, I didn't grow up with that. My dad wasn't into those kind of things. But I found an interest, had a great teacher that kind of shared that. And I can remember still building the wooden Bible stand for my mom for our family Bible that had been in the family for generations and still have it to this day. few times I thought I was going to turn it into firewood because it doesn't quite stand up the way it should have back then. And I've fixed it since I've gotten older. But I just look forward to those classes. So I also knew that I didn't like sitting at a desk and doing work from a book. My high school guidance counselor and I sat down and looked at a few options that our local vocational career technical center offered. And I also knew at that moment, kind of the stigma too, if you were going to go to vocational education, you were going to go because you weren't going to, if you graduated high school, you weren't going to go to college. And I didn't plan on going to college at that point. Notice I said at that point in my life. And most of it was for financial reasons for my family. But I wanted to learn a skill and start making money and not have debt, I enrolled in my junior and senior year at our local career center. That's what we do. We have students as juniors and seniors. And I owe, my career to those 2 years. I really do. The people that took the time to invest in my life. My instructor and I, to this day, are close friends, very close friends. And, it's kind of cool now. I get to bring him back into school and kind of show him off. He's kind of like my trophy, but he invested in me and it matters. And I try to do that with my students as well. So I worked in the trade for about 15 years in electronic repair and customer service, basically setting the stage. It's just remarkable. Sometimes when you do get those free moments in your life and you kind of reflect and I was like, wow, all these things were put in place for kind of feels like this moment, that I've been in this career. So in 1998, I took an assistant instructor position in our local HVAC program at our tech school. Didn't have a lot of experience in the HVAC world, but I had those electronic skills that at that time, most of the people that were working in HVAC were somewhat scared of those electronics, So, I jokingly call him Butt Crack Bob, because that was the plumber that was putting HVAC in. So when you start introducing the electronics, I'm like, holy cow, all of a sudden you're kind of like king of the hill. You're like, I got this. And so I had to go, as I stated, didn't think I was going to go to college, but guess what I had to start doing? I had to go back to college and start learning the HVAC side. So had a good mentor in that role as well. And then accepted my current role as apprenticeship coordinator, school year about 2012. As we all know, like I said, we age and then college all of a sudden shows up on our doorstep. And in my case, I matured more and had the money to be able to spend and pay for the college instead of being in debt for it, as I took, classes at our local community college for business management later on in life. So absolutely love my career. I don't call it a job, just like I tell my students, it's not a job, it's a career, but I absolutely do love it. My wife laughs at me when I wake up every day ready to go in to school or go out on the job site and check on the students. And getting students ready for adulting is very fun, very taxing at times, but also very rewarding and fun. And also the stigma that you aren't going to go to college has also changed at the Career Center. Vocational education. Actually, last year on our report card, 37% of our students out of 23 career tech programs went on to advance to college because in some of our career fields, obviously that's needed, in our medical careers and things like that.
Wow, that number surprises me, 37%. But, that you've prepared them for that also, no matter what it is they're going on to next. That's great.
Yep. College and career readiness, either one.
Yep.
Yeah, and we haven't touched on this crisis on the podcast before, but the student debt crisis, you're addressing that for them and equipping them to where they're not going to get lapped multiple times before they even get out of the gates from that college education. So that's fantastic.
Well, what helps a lot is that articulation credit that we have with a lot of our community colleges and things. So those students will get credit. There's no sense in relearning those same things that they were just taught for 2 years at the Career Center. So local community colleges that we have, Edison Community College right here in Piqua, as well as Sinclair, just a little about 25 miles south of us, have articulation credits because those students get college credit. And hey, that saves, $3,000, $6,000, $9,000, $12,000, hey, that's a lot of money.
Significant. Real quick, you mentioned just multiple times in your bio there, quick bio, that the value of mentors in your life and relationship. And before we actually started recording, you were telling us quickly that you took a call 10 to 11 last night as you and your wife were getting ready for bed from one of your students having a question. I first just want to commend you for putting yourself in that position to mentor those students and what the value you're bringing to their life. But real quick, what are the keys that you found to a valuable mentor-mentee relationship, and how would you coach someone who finds themselves in that sort of mentor position for someone else?
Well, I think that answer is in what you just stated. I preach this to my students: is communication. It really is. Just keep me in the loop. So in my case, because I have so many students that are out working, I have a school phone. So my students don't have Mr. Trapp's personal cell phone. They have a school phone and have a number that they can call. So it's just mentoring them and just getting them life guidance, unfortunately, my phone probably only has about 5 to 6 hours of the day. It's not ringing. I get employer phone calls at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's like, hey, can you get a hold of so-and-so? We don't have their number. We're changing job sites and they need to report to, 30 minutes further down the road than what they thought. So it's just, and that all comes down to, communication. And I think that helps so much. And just, being that person that's willing to listen. I'm not trying to be their dad. They have dad most likely, but I try to be that person to kind of help. So, I'm a faith believer. And I do my best not to bring that too much into it, but I also know, or I feel that this is somewhat, a ministry to me. It's, it's a career, but I try to help with those things if they're needed. If students need those guidance, there's, I have a memorial, so to speak, items on my wall that just in the last less than 10 years doing this, I've lost a few students. Unfortunately, it's because of their choice. But I have a memorial on that wall so that every day I look at those students and remember that, everybody gets a chance. And hopefully you can help somebody through their day-to-day problems as well.
That's beautiful.
Wow. I didn't mean to go off on that.
Fantastic. Beautiful. Thank you, Tony. So tell us a little bit more about UVCC. We're those of us that know in the community are proud of it and know that it is recognized statewide in Ohio, but also nationally as a leader in career and technical education. So tell us a little bit more about it, what the school as overall looks like, and then that'll lead right into what you do there with the apprentice program.
Yeah. We've been very fortunate. We are recognized under the Ohio State Department of Education as what they refer to as a state model program. And I've had the honor of sharing our apprenticeship program to other career tech schools in our region, in our state, even nationally at conferences, and several in DC, Baltimore, Las Vegas, Colorado, Arizona. Had a chance to actually, a school flew me out to Arizona a few years ago and actually helped them start their program up. And our school was very open to that. Spent a week out there. Actually 10 years or 9 years ago to this week. So if you're not in Ohio, it's very cold here right now, 10 degrees. And in Arizona, it was very nice. It was about 72 degrees. So, what a great time to go out there. But the state part, like I said, the State Department of Education has used us as kind of their roadshow for the past 6 years, kind of sharing best practices. It's not perfect, but we do some pretty cool things that we want to be able to share. And that's the thing about career tech education. You don't really, steal from anybody. You just they share it from you. But, student recognition is obviously a big deal at Upper Valley Career Center. Typically, once the students have committed to a particular employer, we have a signing day for skilled trades, just like high school athletes, and academics do for going off to college. I want to celebrate these students. It's very important to celebrate them, their student achievements, and it solidifies that business partnership that we have as well. Never fails. All of a sudden, it's so hard as the program continues to grow to try to get everybody to do that activity, and some are lower key and we don't really need to do that. But man, as soon as I miss somebody, I'm getting a phone call or a text or emails like, hey, saw on your social media that so-and-so did a signing day. When are we going to do that? It's like, holy cow. So, but it's kind of cool. We received recognition from the Lieutenant Governor of Ohio last year, and we invited him to our signing day. It was actually In-Demand Jobs Weeks, which is In-Demand Job Week, which is the first week in May. And we were showing off our students, flexing our muscles, showing what we have, and our business industry partnerships. We had our business partners there, not all the programs, but majority of our construction trades and our manufacturing. And it's so funny as the summer went on, that happened in May, and I know one of the staff members, and for a few months later, apparently as Lieutenant Governor Husted was going around doing his road shows on workforce and things like that. He would share some of our success stories, some of our data. So yeah, it made you pretty proud. It's pretty cool when he takes something from that and then goes around and talks to other schools about, hey, this is happening over in Pequot. Do you guys know these guys? So pretty neat. And then of course that usually gets the phone ringing. Hey, how do you guys do that? So we do a lot of that, sharing best practices. But, in 2013 and again in 2018, we received, at the Ohio ACTE conference, which is the Association of Career Technical Education. They have a national one and then an Ohio one as well. But we received a Pacesetter Award for our program at the State Career Technical Educators Conference. So kind of a big deal. It's nice to be in front of your peers, statewide, showing off, like I said, not showing off yourself. You're showing off what the accomplishments of our students and our business partners have done. And then, there's a neat one, even locally here. Our students are nominated and selected from a local economic and workforce group in Darke County. They have a 20 under 20 award. And it's just so cool. It's just a night, I send a nomination for a student that lives in that county or works in that county. And if they receive that, it's a night of celebration of their accomplishments, in that county. And those students are selected from other different schools, about 30 different traditional high school students as well that might be working, on some sort of work-based learning. But our students, staff, administration, and business partners in our area, they're the ones that make the program special. That's the key. That's the part.
That's awesome. And student recognition and encouragement and lauding their accomplishments has to do so much to just continue to break those stigmas like you talked about that existed 30 years ago and still exists some to this day. Do you feel like those stigmas are getting better and kind of weeding themselves out when it comes to career tech education?
I do. And I think the success stories breeds itself, and I'll be honest, I'm spoiled sometimes. Here in Miami County and Shelby County area, connecting counties, we just have a great business partnership, and they want to be able to get those students. So, man, anytime, I often say, and I was talking to a new business partner just a little bit ago, we're in the manufacturing business all the way across the board at school. We're manufacturing employees. We're manufacturing the workforce. And if we don't put out a good product, then the word's going to get out. But if we put out a good product, the word's going to get out.
That story is being told for sure. And I lived it myself going to high school in the region, and junior year, a couple of kids, you didn't see them quite as frequently other than sports games or whatever. And senior year, they come back and eventually tell you that, yeah, well, I'm going to graduate with you, but I have a job set up to make $50,000 next year. Excuse me? So it, they were excited, and it just starts permeating and weeds out those stigmas, like you said. So a lot of those kids that I was talking to were working in your apprenticeship program and were set up for success that way. So tell us what that looks like and how that relationship between school, student, and local trade partner, how that works.
Okay, so now this is my passion. So I get pretty excited, get goosebumps literally about this kind of stuff. So it'll probably be my longest answer. So let me basically explain high school career tech ed in Ohio and regionally in case other people that maybe wherever they're listening to this podcast may not have. But I feel it's important to kind of explain the career technical education before I discuss the nuts and bolts of our high school apprenticeship program. So students, while they're sophomores at their local school, they sign up for a program to visit our school and enroll in one of our 23 CTE or career technical education programs. That's one of the things when I got into education, man, the acronyms are, they write a book on those things. So we have a recruitment coordinator that visits our associate schools and takes one of the students from each one of those programs with them on a road show, to recruit It's kind of like a job fair. We'll take that whole group of students. I've been very fortunate to be added to his team the last couple of years because we've noticed that our apprenticeship program has become a recruitment/retention tool for students that are sophomores. And once again, the success of those students that are, that's juniors or seniors, like you said, they're going back sporting events and their buddies are hearing the success they're doing. Wow, that breeds itself as well. So, but once they sign up and enroll, they start in a program during their junior year. They start qualifying for the apprenticeship program day one. I tell them, hey, don't care what happened back at your home school, whether it was good or bad. You're going to start a brand new clean slate here. And that'll take place, once they qualify and meet the apprenticeship program. And we'll talk a little more about it, but it actually starts at the very end of their junior year, beginning of their senior year. So the cool thing is career tech is finally cool. The college for all mentality isn't for everyone. Why not let the ones that don't want to go to college have that opportunity to be successful through maybe a different pathway or something. So we also find the importance of helping students explore careers during their K through 10 or K through 12 education cannot be emphasized enough. We have to get in there and share these successes with even the younger ones. So children begin thinking about, possibilities. We can remember back, you hear the stories, you're 3 and 4 years old. What do you want to be? I want to be a fireman. Everybody wants to do this and that. So, there's just so many career opportunities and they start seeing those big brother, big sister type, mentors. And it's like, oh, I want to do that. So we're seeing the possibilities and thinking about the possibilities of what they want to do in their career, at a much sooner age, than what most people think. At all levels, it's very important that college and career readiness programs provide students with that information, those different array of possibilities rather than just dictating that path. We have a career tech to go trailer that we have some items in. We have a virtual welder in there. We have a robotic arm. We have a simulated paint sprayer. We have some 4x4s with some screws that students will use an impact on, just getting some hands-on stuff. And you will get students that literally are scared to death of grabbing a drill and then get ready to put that bit into that screw and then that noise that makes, so might have been the first time they've ever done it. So we feel that it's very important to go to the elementaries and middle schools and even I catch myself a lot in my, I've noticed what better place to go meet new business partners is than your local chamber of commerce. Those events right there are so valuable in my position that I have, and share those trades and they get that word out too. Actually this year we started partnering. We've been a part of Manufacturing Day for several years. But we've been working with, our chamber of getting, or local chamber of getting more business partners to open those doors. So, and we also share career tech, at a young age. We have a camp, my Camp Excel. It's grades 4th through 7th graders. Myself and a recruitment coordinator do that camp in the summer, getting those students exposed to some career fields. So, companies need that talent development strategy that addresses those needs, concerns, and business realities. So we hope that those kind of things help. The best way to develop or implement those strategies is to kind of establish those partnerships, like I said, with our local chamber of commerces. But getting them involved and getting them exposed to that career tech too, they're business partners, they focus on business partners. Let them kind of get involved in the high school side of it as well. So, that kind of, if you can kind of specifically look at that and go to the career tech world, the hands-on world, it gets that exposure to students. So at Upper Valley Career Center, we have what we refer to as 3 work-based learning programs. Our apprenticeship program starts employment after the students start or finish their junior year, so they have to qualify into their senior year. So it's a 2-week on, 2-week off model rotation. So 2 weeks at work, full time. Daily hours. They start the day and end the day with the company and the employees. So they have time clock meetings, at 7:00 in the morning, like everybody else does, and they're clocking out like everybody else does. I think that's very important because they start becoming that team member, that employee, and they're not just, hey, that kid over there, hey, have that kid do this or have that kid do that.
Sure.
That's so important, let them get into the mix and let them get glued in there as well. And then the other 2 weeks, they come back to school full time. In the mornings, they get academics because they still need to get their high school diploma. At our school, we have full academics. And then they get additional career tech training in the afternoon, whatever career field they're in by their lab instructors. So, and here's some kind of cool stuff that, during their academics, they're learning those real world scenarios and life skills. And I think that's one of the things that makes our school so cool is that, once again, the stigma of, hey, the career center or the vocational school is easier. I don't think it's necessarily easier. It makes sense, and our academic teachers do a fabulous job of making things tie to what the career fields are. And they're real world scenarios and life skills. So, here's an example. Our math, we have an apprenticeship math class. They use a Dave Ramsey educational curriculum, the foundation in personal finance. They learn what credit scores are. They're saving money for big purchase items, hopefully staying somewhat debt free. They're investing. These are high school kids. All right. Investing in their 401ks in high school. Now, come on. That's pretty cool
Absolutely.
stuff.
Awesome.
That is cool. And it never fails. I'll get a student that I have a Camaro, very much like Todd has a Camaro. And I have a student that worked in the construction field last year that showed up about March after he'd been in the program in a Camaro, much faster than mine. I'm not going to say it's nicer because I love my Camaro, but much faster than mine. I'm like, man, why did you go in? I started immediately dad mode. Why'd you go in debt for that? I didn't go in debt. I saved him. He worked with his dad on side jobs, and all the money that he worked during his apprenticeship, he saved and paid cash for that car, and told me that he wouldn't even have known that much about that if it wasn't from that math class. So
Very
he
cool.
paid cash for that. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
So our second work-based learning program is what we refer to as advanced placement. Kind of the platinum, the cream of the crop is that apprenticeship, the 2 week on, 2 week off, just because it's that true feeling, getting them adapted to the real world of work. But our second work-based learning program is advanced placement. It starts employment after the student's junior year, just like the apprenticeship does. And a lot of times it's employer driven. It's the traditional, maybe when we were in school, the half day or 3/4 day where students come get their academics, and then they may not go in their lab, and they get their lab is basically their work. And then we have a third work-based learning program. It's called our early placement. I have a coordinator that works with me, Naomi Baker. She oversees that, but it starts employment after the students have completed the first semester of their senior year. So the other two is immediately after their junior year is completed, starting their senior year. And then these students on early placement start at the second semester of their senior year. So many years ago, that's all we had. And we've grown these partnerships, which have grown, obviously, the workforce needs. And this is for a student that maybe didn't qualify for the other two, and they come back and they see their buddy doing what they're doing and making money, and like, holy cow, I screwed up last year. Or they could just be a student that just decided. I mean, I have students every year that, I just want to stick with school. Just want to, I qualify, but maybe they're doing sports at their associate school, and they're just like, I want to focus on football. But we just, we want to make sure that those students have, options. So all the programs are, they have to qualify for the programs. They have to get a certain GPA, attendance rate, recommendations from their lab instructors, because it's very important to get, those lab skills. So to help to understand a little bit deeper, I feel there's 3 steps to work-based learning, the things I've just talked about. So career awareness and exploration, those camps, those open house, career tech to go trailer, different programs in different schools. We're teaching, and the students are learning about careers in companies. Career prep, that's kind of what I think is, once they get to us, I call it the be skilled, be qualified, be paid, but it's a career prep. This is getting those students building those projects, job shadows, work site tours, manufacturing day, which Isaiah Industries always helps out with our students, opens their doors up for that. They're learning with the company, they're learning about that company, so to speak. And then career application. That's what our work-based learning programs are. That's what our apprenticeship program is. They're learning in the companies. So there's a mentor at those companies that those students work with, or more than one, while they're on that 2-week at work rotation. So I think a couple things that makes our program successful is we're truly bridging that classroom to careers. If we wait until they graduate, and there will be no safety net for that education to employment. So we're kind of that safety net in some cases. So So a little bit real quick about the nuts and bolts of the program. I said all that just to get to this point. So, we also call it the Earn and Learn program. Our employers visit our labs while the students are juniors to recruit them. It's to their place of employment in that particular company. So it's like a football draft. The employers want the best, right? So the student qualifies for, through the prerequisites, and then once students have met that criteria, I'm in the classroom saying, hey, this is the group of employers that, I have an employer interest inventory sheet that, hey, these are the employers that's knocking on the doors that want you guys. And oftentimes they want what we've noticed, especially during COVID. And I've said this even before that, but especially since the COVID era here, is they want to be able to create habits in these students versus getting somebody like maybe ourselves and breaking habits. And I say that because you can think for yourself some of the things that has happened since COVID that has caused our workforce needs to kind of increase. But maybe the pool of employees has decreased. So, they don't have some of these habits that an older person, I didn't say old person, older person. And I do oftentimes say old person because anybody over 20 to a 17 or 18-year-old is old.
Absolutely.
But I asked the students, I sit down with them. I said, what's a good life? What does it mean? And how do you get it? A life that has that meaningful work, something that makes you proud. As we all know those stories, you drive, if you're in construction, you drive by that. You don't think about it especially in your high school, but never fails. I lived in what I called the projects for 20 years. I call it the project because it was actually a house that our students built. And our carpentry students built it. Our electrical students wired it. Our HVAC, did the HVAC install, the ductwork fabrication. Our landscaped it. When the students were doing it, it wasn't that they didn't think much about it, but man, it never fails. I'll be out front washing my car at that when I still owned it. I just moved a couple years ago, and that was a hard move for me because I have always prided myself in living in that, their homework, so to speak. But yet, how am I going to tell that story? But, here's the cool thing. My new house, all but one trade was from our school. They were graduates from our school. So very, very proud to still say that, but it would never fail. I'd be out front and I'd have a student stop and go, hey man, so I noticed your house not burnt down. We wired that, of course they're reproducing now. So they have children and some of them I actually encourage not to reproduce, but that's all right. But, they reproduce and have children and they're like, oh yeah, I told my son, you know what? Daddy built that. Daddy wired that. It's like, you didn't think that when you're 17, did you? You're too cool, but you get 27, 30, you're like, yeah, I did that. So it's kind of cool. That part's kind of cool. So, but you have to think about that skilled trades, if I ask that student, what's it going to take for you to be proud of what you do? And as you can imagine, one trade, has many career offerings. These opportunities and careers are not jobs, they're careers. I tell them that. So you take that student, that's a sophomore looking at coming to the Career Center, and let's talk about our electrical trades program, because one of them that I'm very proud of as well. I don't know if I'm okay to throw out company names, but our electrical trades instructor, who typically I place at least 50 to 70% of the students out of that program, just in the apprenticeship program, right out of the gate, was actually received $100,000 for his program just a matter of weeks ago from Harbor Freight Tools for Schools. So just a phenomenal, and that just helps bring some quality things into the classroom, tools and things like that to help our students. But you get that student that's a sophomore and said, hey, I'm going to take electrical. Let's be honest. What do you think he or she's thinking? It's, hey, I flip a switch on at my house and lights come on. Hey, there's a lot of magic involved in that. It has nothing to do with magic. You plug in your cell phone and it starts charging. He's like, man, how did that electric get to, into that little socket thing there? And then I plugged this in and it started working. So they get that. And then, there's so many opportunities, and let's talk about the electrical trades. There's so many opportunities. And I come along once they're eligible for the apprenticeship program and start putting them, working them with the company. So we do job shadows. They get a chance to kind of see what that day in the life of an electrician out there in the real work is. Because at our school, we start at 8:23. Business partnerships with our business partners, they might start at 5 or 5:30 a.m. So to some of these students, that's a slap in the face. But I come along, I put them with that company, and all of a sudden that company they ran conduit, or they ran Romex, their junior year, and they're doing conduit. Maybe they haven't done that yet. Maybe they haven't learned that yet. So they are, learning on the job. And maybe I come along and I'm starting to get a lot of employer requests, for industrial maintenance positions. Most of our placement is coming from our electrical trades program. It's not the perfect fit, but it's becoming a great fit. It really is. But you get somebody that has electrical background, somebody that's willing to work, somebody that's willing to kind of do those things. Once again, remember, a year before that kid came down and thought he was just going to figure out how a light switch works. Now he's working on these big presses or something like that. Once again, one trade has many career offerings. So, once that student qualifies, they're out there working. They do that 2 week on, 2 week off rotation all during the summer. About August, I sit down, find out how many students made the cut, because that's the first trial period. Typically, that's a good 100%. Every once in a while, it might be 99%, but majority of the time, those students qualify during the summer. They stay on with that 2 week on, 2 week off during the school. So I take that list of students and I break it into what we refer to at school as the A-B rotation. So Todd, you would be A, Seth, you would be B. Todd would start out at school. Once school started out in August, you would be at school for 2 weeks, getting your academics, additional career technical program training. And Seth, you would be out working for those 2 weeks full time, making really nice money. And so that rotation just continues throughout the school year, working with that rotation. So we oftentimes hear from our students that they love that rotation, and that creation of that, because they don't have to worry about that classwork when they're at work, and they don't have to worry about work when they're at school, trying to mix the two. Oh, I got to get home and study for a test. No, don't have to worry about that till you get back. So those, and it takes that full gamut, that full circle of everybody helping. Once again, kudos to our academic teachers to be willing to be able to do those things, to see a different group of students every 2 weeks, and you think about that on that 2 week on, 2 week off rotation. And I tell the students this, day one, once they're apprentice and school starting up, one rotation of school, and then you go out to work, you're at midterm already. So you have to not only you qualify for the program, but you must maintain that qualification throughout your senior year as well as you're doing that. So, students, like I said, are treated more like teammates with those employers. And I often remind the employers, I understand they're greenhorns, they're green people, but they're receiving training at no cost to the students or the employers. Come on, free training. That's pretty cool. The employers, everybody loves that. So, it's kind of cool. Little history on little apprenticeship numbers. Our program started out with just a construction trades, our HVAC, our electrical and carpentry programs, utilizing that 2 week on, 2 week off apprenticeship model. And our program is recognized through the state of Ohio, through OSAC or Apprentice Ohio. So our students, if they get into a registered apprenticeship upon graduation, they can get credit for up to 1 year of their 4 or 5 year journey person's certificate. So that's pretty cool too. They don't think much about it, but man, not having to once again relearn that same thing and have to pay for that. So, but we're up to those. We started out with those 3 trades, and we're up to 13 skilled trades programs utilizing this 2 week on, 2 week off model. So it's great. So in 2009, the program went away during the economic hardships and staffing requirements and things like that. So the school retooled it. I became the coordinator almost 10 years ago, and we've been able to kind of grow the program from 8 students to last year we had 76 students at the same time that we were adding, in-demand jobs and career tech programs. That's neat in itself. So those 76, and now here's some cool stuff. Those 76 students made over $1.5 million while they were part of that program their senior year.
Goodness.
I mean, that deserves a wow,
Absolutely.
And drum roll. But this year, I'm excited that currently we have 97 students that participating in our apprenticeship 2 week on, 2 week off. So I'm looking forward to possibly breaking that $2 million mark, guys.
That's incredible when you think about the impact that's having on the workforce out amongst employers and so forth. And as Seth said earlier, that's just the number one thing we hear in the construction industry is I can't find people. Kudos to you guys. You're making a difference in that. That's
Thank you.
Cool stuff.
Thank you. It's team, that's for sure.
So what's the feedback you get from those employers on these students that you're placing with them? As they enter into the program, I imagine that historically they're out there placing job ads looking for people with 5 years experience or something, and having to really rethink their perspective on their staffing needs and who they're going to recruit and go after. But once they get in the program and start working with these kids, what are they telling you?
Well, perfect example. About 15 minutes before this, I had a phone call from an employer that's a first-year employer, local electric company about 30 miles south. And he's like, man, what do I got to do to get in there to get another Keaton for next year? I need 2 Keatons. And, it's just the success of these students and the employers willing to take the time to invest in this. I don't want them to immediately become that employee. There has to be that training involved, and don't forget that. And it's so cool. And I think a lot of times it's just, in my job, in my career, I just said job again. That's a dirty word. That's a bad word. But in my career, I have to work with a lot of different avenues of a company. I might deal with HR, I might deal with, a plant manager, a floor supervisor, or a field supervisor, or those kind of things. So a lot of times it's getting them to the table, letting them understand. You bring those heavy hitters right out of the gate into our school. I think that's key. Man, if I can get employers in our building, see what happens in that school. I mean, we're like a little city underneath that roof, and get a chance to see what the heck is going on in their community that they drive by every day. And it never fails, guys. You hear that. Wow, I didn't know this happened. I just had a new one yesterday. Wow, I didn't, I thought I knew what happened down here, but I didn't know all these things happen. And then just to see the students in the labs building and working, and, majority of that's just because there's so much, and this is why the employers are willing to do it. There is some training involved. We do that up front. There's still continued training that needs to be involved while they're at work, at school, or at work with a mentor. But sometimes it's getting those other people that they work around, breaking that stigma that they're a kid, hey, let them feel part of it. And, those are the things that I kind of have to help with students, like, how to work, how to deal with people, and oftentimes it's not necessarily, and I'm not saying it's rainbows and unicorns. My program is not that. All right. It has hiccups. It has things. I have basically 97 employees is the way I look at it. So if you're a company that has employees, you can imagine there's all sorts of different, yeah. So you deal with that, and you help them, you help them become that. But, it's like, oh, this guy doesn't like me. What do I do? We got to figure this out. If you're 40 years old and the guy don't like you, you might have matured enough to know what to do, you invite them over and play Wii bowling and beat them at it. And, then everybody goes on and buys the other guy lunch. But no, it's just adapting life. But the employers just, like I said, it's not perfect. It's by no means do I want anybody to take, oh, wow, that's just perfect, polished, and go. No, I'm dealing with high school students here. But if those employers can see the value in investing in these young, this young workforce, once again, creating habits in the workforce that they want, versus breaking those habits, that breeds its success right there.
Absolutely. And you're bringing out a key point, or what I'm taking away is, the employer has to understand what they're getting into as a key, component of this three-legged stool. This is not bringing in a temp worker type of mentality. You still have to provide training. You still have to build those relationships. But if everyone's working in coordination, it can obviously be very, very successful.
You're hired. That's exactly right. That's it.
There we go.
There is an investment on their end as well.
So looking at past graduation and on into their senior year, what's the rate of ongoing employment with these partnerships, or the rate at which these students are maintaining that career and on the rest of their life?
Well, we're one of the things that we're required by the Ohio Department of Education to do what's called a 1-year post-graduation follow-up survey. The lady that I work with, Naomi Baker, she works with me in the career. We've created a career advancement center within the school, the center of the school, so students can come to our career advancement center and help them with resumes, and do all the things that I've talked about already with placement and matching them up with an employer. But she does takes on that task of what the state calls the post-program placement report. I call it the 3 E's: employment, enrollment, which would be college, or enlistment in the military. So they're either employed, they're either enrolled in college, or they're enlisted in the military. Or even more so, Tony Trapp language, what'd you do with that diploma? What have you done so far with that diploma? So when I share this data, it may get a little confusing to our audience. With the students that are in my apprenticeship program, the students that have met, the 76 last year, 99% of them stay on with the employer. And it varies, reasoning why. Maybe it's just, and then that's a great opportunity too. Maybe maybe that whole career field isn't what they thought it was going to be, or they decide that, they're an electrician and they're going to go to electrical engineering at a local university or something. So maybe they didn't stay on with that employer. So there's lots of different reasons why that may not be. But we have about another 80 or so students that participated in our other work-based learning programs that I talked about earlier. So we're at about 95% continued placement 1 year after graduation from the follow-up survey. So as you can imagine, tracking those about 450, 460 students down can be quite the task for her. So, and I live in the community. I run into students. So I want to say mine's a little bit different on my follow-up because I just continue to follow up with them. I keep that school cell number. I have students reach out to me, 5, 6, 7 years so far out, and it's like, hey, Trapp, how you doing? Or, hey, I don't know if you heard, but I changed. This is where I'm at. Or, hey, I went back to school. Or, hey, like I said earlier, they did reproduce. Hey, I got 2 kids now. Haven't seen you at Kroger lately or Walmart. So that's how my follow up is. It's in the trenches.
One of the biggest complaints oftentimes from employers is rapid turnover. They hire somebody and 3 weeks later they're on to something else. What you folks are doing seems like it would really set these students entering the workplace off on a great foot because they know what they're getting into and they know that employer. So I can see that as a real positive as well. Now, I know that there's an international exchange component to what you folks do. I'd love to hear about that. I was a short-term exchange student to Germany in high school. I got to take my first airplane flight sitting next to Steve Wiedock, my teacher, and go over there for all kinds of fun stuff. But anyway, tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing with international.
We have a youth apprenticeship program that we started back in 2017 after traveling with one of our local chamber of commerces to Hanover, Germany in 2015. So our local chamber of commerce approached our superintendent, Dr. Luce at that time, and said, hey, how would you like to go over to me with this conference? And she's like, I don't think I'm a good fit, but how about you take our apprenticeship coordinator? So myself and our assistant superintendent at the time, Jason Hawk, traveled with our local chamber of commerce because this is what I think is awesome. This is where getting in there in those chamber of commerces has just been so fruitful, man. I mean, we want to feel like we help them too, but they help us. But he wanted to kind of flex his muscles and go, hey, because he was going to visit, while we were there, about 5 different companies they have mother companies. They have sister companies there in Troy, Ohio. They have mother companies in that area. So he's going to show off what educational programs that we have to help train the workforce, show off what we have. But we attended a very large international manufacturing trade show, the Hanover Messe trade show. And while we were there, I love trade shows, but holy cow, a whole week of it, I'm like, I'm not quite sure I could handle this. But we wanted to make our experience valued. So myself and our assistant superintendent reached out to some high schools there in Hanover, they still do use the term vocational education, but we wanted to discuss the youth apprenticeship program. So as you may or may not know, Germany is pretty well known for their apprenticeship programs. So how can we learn from some best practices from them? So after meeting with several schools, we connected with a school called BBSME. It's in Hanover, Germany, and they're very similar to us. And I was able to connect with their coordinator, Matthias Merker. And Matthias is very outgoing, and he actually lived in the Milwaukee area for a while, and believe it or not, actually taught English, but they were to German students. But and he's like, hey, how can we do this? Excuse me. How can we do this? How can we do an exchange? I'm like, what? An exchange? I was like, I don't think we do that. My students don't speak German. He's like, oh, no, they don't need to. Our students speak really good English. I help them with it, and how can we do this? Well, that sounded cool, but how am I going to build up the nerve to be able to talk to our superintendent about this? Holy cow, was that an easy task? Because first of all, I had second in command with me, our assistant superintendent, and he's like, great idea. I love it. Let's figure out what's going to do. So we just decided to further those discussions, regarding that youth apprenticeship, and, bam, next thing you know, we created an apprenticeship exchange program for career technical education. How cool is that? We have a sister school in Germany. That's pretty cool, man. So we all know high schools that offer those exchanges, like, Todd had talked about for foreign language classes, but a vocational, career tech apprenticeship exchange, that's cool. So yeah, a little bit about that. Traditionally, we select 10 students from various trades to host 10 students from Germany in the fall of the school year. And then our students that hosted reciprocate in the spring, and they go to Germany, and those students in Germany host our students to learn more about culture, school days, apprenticeship training, and, as we take our training globally. How cool is that? It's absolutely amazing opportunity for our students, our schools, and communities. And here's a cool one for you. So I think it was our second exchange that we went on. We had one of our local girls that she was a senior. She was in our engineering program. Is like she's from Fiji, had been adopted here in Piqua through just a tremendous family. And she was selected as one of our exchange students, which has its own story in itself, because, I have to start getting all these students ready for their passports and things. And then all of a sudden, not just take a person that's been born and raised in America. All of a sudden I find out she has a Fiji passport. It's like, whoa. You got to become a U.S. citizen first. So her task was just, holy cow, right out of the gate. But we got it. 3 days before we left, she got her passport. And a week and a half before that, she became a U.S. citizen. So, So cool. But that story gets better. She goes over with us on the exchange, and she's a senior. So they have a 13th year there in Hanover, Germany. So, oftentimes when I was in high school, I thought I was going to have a 13th year too, but I made it. But she had, before we left, I didn't even know anything about this. She had applied for this exchange, post-secondarily. Well, when we were there, she says, Mr. Trapp, she said, I'm a finalist. I said, finalist for what? She said, I'm a top 3 finalist to be able to come, to Germany, blah, blah, blah. And she starts telling me about this thing. And I'm like, that's cool. Where at? She's like, I don't know. You think I can come to Hanover? I'm like, I don't know anything about your program. How am I going to answer that? So, man, just sitting down with staff members and working with that young lady, guess what happened? She graduated. She got an exchange for the apprenticeship, and she was based in Hanover, Germany. Guess who she stayed with? Her host family.
Wow, that's awesome.
Her host family, and she was there. We had a group of 10 students in Germany when COVID hit in March of, 19? So President Trump made the announcement apparently at like 8:20 p.m. on a Tuesday night that shutting the borders down. If you're out of the country, you need to get back. And at 2:20 a.m. Wednesday morning, because they're 6 hours ahead, I get a phone call saying, got to get these kids back to America, And she was actually, she had already graduated. She was there with that family. She came back. And then a year went past, and I just talked to her. Oh my gosh, so cool. Social media and technology is so cool. Her and I, she just pops in my mind sometimes, and I'll reach out to her, catch her on the bus. She's in Hanover, Germany now, continuing her apprenticeship. She has her partner, her business partner, and she's still going to school. Wow. All from a little exchange program right here. And guess what? I think she's sweet on the guy that her family hosted her, the brother of it. So I think we might even be matchmakers, global matchmakers.
You may have just announced something there. You never know.
Well, they all know. Mom and Dad already know. We've had that conversation. It's like, wow. I often say we're like matchmakers. We're trying to match those students to the employer, but man, I didn't know it. on the love side too.
That's a great story. And I remember when you had those students over there, right, when the lockdown was starting, and everyone on social media was kind of watching and praying for those kids. And you guys,
Amen. That's true. That's true. We made it back. We made it back in record time.
Wow.
Yeah, before they shut the gates.
So tell us a little bit about the Career Center's outlook and any proposed solutions you have for the current skilled labor shortage, maybe any statistics you have to share on that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we feel we had a good jump start on the solution through those, one of those 3 work-based learning programs. Hope to thank that. We continue to add additional career tech programs that participate in those work-based learning programs at a much sooner rate. And I'll explain it this way. For instance, this year we added 4. Technically, we have 101 apprentices. I'm just overseeing 97 of those. We added 4 Medical Careers Academy students to that apprenticeship rotation due to, as we all know, the needs in healthcare. And it wasn't that they weren't involved before. It was just, it's kind of on our part as a facility. We had to change curriculum around because what the students needed to be able to go out, those credentials to be able to go out in the workforce, were taught at a later time in their school year. So we had to move that forward so that they would be able to have those certifications to be able to go out and work with them. So we're growing those workforce opportunities for different additional career fields. So Naomi has 4 of those Medical Careers Academy students out, and I think she had 10 students in the summer through an internship program. So some of our programs do not have that, the proper certification like I talked about, having those certificates added earlier in the student's junior year during the curriculum just helps solidify that senior year and permits them to be able to go out on that job training while still in school. Here's a good example, our cosmetology program. We have a cosmetology program. And if you want to know more information about our school itself, it's www.uppervalleycc.org, uppervalleycc.org. To talk about all of our programs that we have. But, that's a good example. No way around that one. Those students cannot go out until second semester of their senior year because they haven't taken their state board certification test yet to be able to go out and be employed. So, but we're looking at trying to change, things around on that too. But overall school wide, 96% of our students were employed in their career field study. Like I said earlier, that college, career, military, whatever. And about 45% of those students through those work-based learning programs, almost 50% are already working before they leave school. So I would like to think that those things are helping with those workforce needs.
Oh, no question. It's having a significant impact. Absolutely. What would your advice be to a construction company or any company looking to build a relationship with their local vocational education center and potentially developing that type of apprentice relationship?
Well, I'd encourage them to get, connected with them, reach out to them. Unfortunately, maybe the Career Center they may not have that coordinator like myself because I'm kind of that extension of the school or, those programs. So it can be difficult for those teachers. I don't want to put blame on it, but if they haven't reached out to you, reach out to them, get involved, just become an advisory committee member, and get involved and come in classroom, be a guest speaker, share best practices, share some of the neat things that's helped make them successful.
Cool. And like what we talked about earlier, those other having a proper expectation for what the relationship is going to look like, but how fruitful it can be for everyone involved. Any other unique programs at UVCC or other exciting developments or dreams happening in CTE education that really excites you?
Well, that's an interesting one. I'll try not to get in the weeds too much, but there's about 49 career centers across Ohio that have different options for students and maybe different career opportunities available for that particular region or area. So to answer that question a little differently, we'd like to see maybe less standardized testing across the board, across the state. Our career tech students are tested more than a traditional high school student. I'm going to get very political here. So you ask, they have to take state tests for their academic, like we're used to seeing, for high school. Plus they have to take career technical program tests, there's a good chance that they came to the Career Center because they're not good test takers, and they are tested more at a career center in Ohio, in case, than maybe like I said, a traditional high school. But we're very fortunate. We have some amazing academic teachers and career tech teachers and administration that help work through that curriculum, makes things relevant. That's why oftentimes it's easier. It's just because it's relevant. But that's key right there. I also like to see more access to career tech education in some of our comprehensive schools. I mean, we're at a big capacity right now. We're at over 1,000 students on our campus. 8 years ago, we were at about 670, I believe that number is. So we have just grown. So we're needing to get our create satellite programs and put them in our comprehensive schools for, whether it's career exploration, before they sign up for a program like we have in our middle schools, to kind of funnel them to us, or, out of our current satellite programs that we have 14 associate schools, and we don't have satellite programs in all those schools. We're hoping to get more into that. And I'd also love to see driver's education added back into the schools as an accredited class. That's a big challenge. We often face that challenge of students not having a driver's license before they go out to work. Some may have to wait until midsummer to start that apprenticeship due to that problem. So there's an Ohio Revised Code that allows our students under the age of 18. If any of our podcast listeners were thinking about, hey, how do you get these high school kids in there? We're very blessed in the state of Ohio that there's an Ohio Revised Code that lets that take place. And a lot of that's because they're in a career technical pre-apprenticeship program like ourselves. Because our students have been trained, that first year, before they even go out. So they're familiar what OSHA is. It's not a big body of water. It's not ocean, it's OSHA, so, just things like that. It helps get them adapted to that. But man, I see that every year. And, and honestly, I mean, if you haven't put a young man or young lady on the road lately, it's expensive to find a car and then to find, insurance. I mean, my youngest son was a good student. He got, good grade discount and all that stuff. I bought him an $1,800 car because that's all he needed just in case, because I didn't quite trust him with much more. And, it cost $1,500 the first year to insure him. I'm like, holy cow, so, but, just getting these kids on the road to be able to go out to some of these jobs, because if they're in the construction world, as I often tell them, you have to go where the work is. You're going to have to go to those job sites. So they're going to have reliable transportation as well. But man, just getting the driver's license under their belt has been a huge task. And then, the COVID thing thumped it too. So, there was kids ready last year to get their license. And then all of a sudden, all those bureaus shut down. And then even when they opened back up, they closed some of them, for good. So, but that's one I'd love to see driver's ed being added back into school like it was maybe when some of us were in school.
Do you feel like we've kind of, crossed that bridge at least where there isn't the stigma associated with, kids are growing up being told you got to go to college? I mean, I was a product of that generation. That's what I was told. And I kind of walked and followed suit with that. In the end, I often look back on my college days and say, I learned a lot of soft skills. I didn't learn anything that helped me with my career realistically. Do you think we've kind of jumped that where finally families are starting to talk about other options and careers rather than just the natural, you got to go to college?
Regionally, absolutely. I mean, career tech is finally cool. Regionally, it's just changed. I mean, once again, even parents that come in for our open house is just blown away. And they could have been a product of the school back in the 80s or 90s. And they're like, holy cow, this isn't even the same school. It's kind of like, this isn't your daddy's Buick, but just, I think statewide, Ohio leads it, with 49 career centers, but even nationally, we have a company that flies in wholesalers every year into their area, and they spend a day with our students from different areas of the country, and they're blown away about career tech education because they may not have it in another state. But in our area, absolutely. And I think it's the success. I think, like I said earlier, career tech is finally cool. I drink the Kool-Aid every day, so I think it's cool. I drink career tech Kool-Aid.
We do as well.
And sometimes I spill it on me, so hoping that you guys get a little bit of it too. So anything we could do to kind of share those best practices. And, I absolutely appreciate and love that you guys have allowed us to be able to do this, because things like this allows that great word to get out.
It's always fun talking with someone who's as passionate about anything as you are about career technical education. So wonderful conversation, but all the more powerful with the impact it has on our industry, the economy, and obviously the lives of these students. That's been such a blessing to hear those stories mixed in with this as well. So thanks so much for all you were doing on all those fronts. Before we wrap up, wanted to ask if you might extend the conversation a little bit and be willing to participate in our rapid fire question round. So something fun, questions may be silly or a little more serious that we like to end our conversations with. There will be 7 questions, and if you agree to be a part, the only commitment is that you provide some sort of answer for each of them. So Tony, are you up to the rapid fire questions?
Absolutely not, because I've been listening to other podcasts and nobody's ever said no. You said it.
There we go.
I think it was, I don't know, I might be wrong, but Bob Zabkik, and you said, oh, nobody's really ever said no. So I just said no for that. But no, I would love it. Shoot, fire away.
First question, are you a morning or a night person?
Good Lord. I told you what time I took a call last night and I was wide awake. So I am definitely a night person. One of my struggles growing up was, as I said, I was a product of career tech. And even though I loved going, I still had 6 alarm clocks at one point in my life to wake me up because they're habit forming. So I would know where the next one was. I'd turn it off. And then 5 minutes later, the next one would. But definitely, with age, that changes. When you get my age, you're lucky to get 3 or 4 hours of sleep anyways without having to wake up in the middle of the night. So, but definitely a night person.
Go. You kind of tipped your hand at this question a little earlier, but would love to hear more. What is your favorite car?
Chevy Camaro. I'll go with that. My wife and I had one when we first started dating. I bought it, brand new. I was working one of our work-based, I was a product of our 3rd work-based learning program. At that time, all we had was early placement. So I was working. I had not been taught Dave Ramsey. So I went out to our local Chevy dealer, went in debt, $208.38 a month for a 1985 Chevy Camaro that I chose not to get air conditioning in. And my wife and I started dating. I felt sorry for her because we would head off to places dressed up, or we'd go to church, and I'd have to roll the windows down to cool it off in this, summertime. And then I got rid of it. And fast forward about 35 years, and I was kind of like, hey, honey, I'm thinking about getting something. She's like, why don't we get a Camaro? I'm like, what? You're actually encouraging me to do this? Let's do it. So she said, well, we had one when we were dating, and almost to the date, within 2 weeks, we purchased another Camaro. I've got a convertible, and we enjoy just spending time together and riding, just riding around. So Chevy Camaro, I'll go with that.
Very cool. Well, yeah, you mentioned it. Some similarities with Todd there with the Camaro and sentimental attachment to cars.
Yeah, I do have that.
I often send him texts when I drive by your shop and it looks a little cloudy and the top might be down. It's like, yeah, I might want to put your top up.
Thank you.
Third question, what's your favorite dessert?
I started this. That's a tough question. About 3 years ago, I started this keto diet. So I took sugars and, breads and things away. So, the ultimate was chocolate peanut butter pie, but you can't hardly make that keto.
Yeah.
So now it's a packaged keto brownie mix. I will not mention names, but I don't eat the sweets that I used to eat, which is good.
Yep.
But just not a dessert eater like I used to. But I will say that I have adapted, and I have a small little brick of 90% cocoa. Everybody's going to go, ugh, but that's my go-to dessert snack after a meal now. So I'm a sick person.
Yeah, that peanut butter pie will throw you out of ketosis real quick.
Our school actually has a culinary program, and apparently we have some of the best peanut butter pie around. I can't tell you. I can tell you what it smells like, but I can't tell you what it tastes
Impressive willpower there. So, 4, dream vacation.
I've never went on a cruise. I'd probably like to do that. Maybe I'm a little, I could probably see myself getting seasick, but dream vacation. I don't know, man. My wife and I aren't much of, long vacationers. We took a week off 34 years ago for our honeymoon. And we haven't taken a week off since. We take long weekends. So we literally like to just get out and drive. This is going to be tough to say, especially on a national podcast, being from Ohio, but probably 2 of my favorite places is Tennessee. My in-laws live there, live on the lake. We love that. Just something about the mountains and the lake. But man, my go-to is that state north of us that starts with an M. Yeah. And it's just, you get up there around Michigan. I left the M off and, get around the water and the Lake Michigan and just the sand dunes. Man, there's just something about that. It finally takes away some of those crazy day, stresses. So I can't say that I have a dream one, but, I will honestly say it's not a vacation by no means, but I'm looking forward to the day to be able to get back to our exchange program and get back over into Europe and Germany and start building those relationships again. So, but maybe 1 or 2 days I can make it a vacation while I'm there.
Best concert you've ever been to?
Ooh, not much of a concert guy. My first one was 1983 at a place called Hare Arena in Dayton with my cousin for a Hank Williams Jr. concert.
There we go. That'd be a fun part.
So I was exposed. I lived a pretty sheltered life. I was exposed to a lot of things that night. That was a little weird to me.
Well, my first concert, also Hare Arena, probably 2 years before yours, I think 1981. Mine was Rush, though. So a little different band.
6, do you have any hobbies?
Not really. I don't have a lot of time for that. Driving, yeah. Just things that kind of help get my mind off of stuff. And my wife and I, neither one have had them. It's so funny. She has never been really a hobby person or a crafter. And man, she's got the craft bug. So she's been building some neat things and I help with that. So it's kind of fun.
Sure.
The two of us doing things together sometimes, and sometimes it's not so fun, but yeah, last night was one of those nights. Like, she's like, it's a craft night. I'm like, who is this girl? A year ago, you were not this girl, and I'm trying to fix her up a place in the basement, because I'm just terrified. We have a brand new home with a very expensive countertop and she's doing her crafts on that. I was like, can we move this to the basement? Cause I can see something happen. Nope, I'm good. I want my TV. We have an open floor plan. I want my TV and I want the sunlight, so not much of a crafter, but helping my wife with some of the crafts that she does.
That's fun.
So.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Last one, favorite movie quote.
Wow. That's, man, I mean, here it is January. It's so close to Christmas right behind us. I would have to go with something from, Chevy Chase's Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. But man, I'm creepy like this. I like a good sling blade too, Billy Bob Thornton. So, maybe you want some, you got any mustard for this biscuit?
Good. That's a good.
Something like that. I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm not much of a movie guy. I don't sit still very often. So, but man, I love me some sling blade every once in a while. If you have not watched that, watch that. But it is it's almost like Fargo. It's a weird movie.
All right. Well, you do a good Billy Bob Thornton regardless. So there you go. Well, that's it. Thanks for having fun with that part as well, Tony. And thank you so much again for all you doing for the lives of your students individually. And then for those of us out there desperate for develop relationships with them and so that we can all be successful businesses and in their careers as well. So
appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the time. I do. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anything before we wrap up that you'd like to say or that we haven't touched on?
No, like I said, if you're listening to this podcast and how can you get involved? I'd like to encourage our listeners to get more involved with your local tech schools, whether it's a high school program or an adult program. I hate to say it, but maybe it's going to have to take you to take that step to walk in and say, hey, I want to learn a little bit about what you do. Hopefully you can kind of get some good success stories like we've had here in our area. So, just encourage everyone to kind of get involved. You might be able to donate some things that's been sitting on the shelf, drawing dust and, tax season rolls around. You can write those things off, but, maybe somebody else can put them to use and a school can use those and students can use them. So, just some donations as well. So.
Well, when we first started this podcast, I knew that one of the things we wanted to focus on was technical education. And how awesome was it when I immediately realized, we had a national model right here locally. So fantastic to have you join us here today. Thank you. And we'll probably have you again and get some others, Matt, and maybe some others as well on. So
that'd be great. Looking forward to it. And if anyone wants to reach out for advice or other insights from you, how can they best get a hold of you?
I'm available on LinkedIn. I said earlier, our website, uppervalleycc.org. My email address is TRAPPT, so it's Trapp with 2 P's, T at uppervalleycc.org. Or follow me on LinkedIn, Tony Trapp. I love celebrating our student success there, as well as, connecting those business industries to that young, skilled, and talented workforce. So, man, I love connecting those LinkedIn connections. It's so cool. I mean, you actually kind of sometimes you go to a conference or something and it's like, hey, I follow you on LinkedIn. It's like, man, I feel like a stinking hero. This is cool. I got a following, kind of like Russian Hank Jr. does, But just feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love to get connected and nationally. And if there's anything I can do to help you start your conversations with your local career technical schools, and I would love to be a part of that as well.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Tony. Again, been a wonderful time. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for this episode of Construction Disruption with Tony Trapp, 2 P's from the Upper Valley Career Center. Please watch for future episodes of our podcast. We have many more great guests on tap. And don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or YouTube to help us get the word out of the great things happening in our great construction industry. So thank you again. God bless. Take care. This is Isaiah Industries signing off with until the next episode of Construction Disruption.